Okay. Well, hi, everyone. You know me and Lydia, but want to introduce you to Brian and Kirsten Donohue. They run Cuirim Outreach, and we're so excited to get to share this introduction with you all who are here at Nogales Noche to hear from Brian and Kirsten a little bit more about Cuirim House. So first of all, I would love to hear, for someone who isn't very familiar with what a Nogales mission trip entails, could you guys share a little bit about Cuirim House and what a week in the life of a student coming down looks like?
Sure. Well, Nogales is right on the border. So you spend most of your time traveling in the US and you cross into Mexico, and you're only traveling 3 miles about from the border up to Cuirim House. And it's in a neighborhood that is what's called an invasion neighborhood. It's like a refugee camp where people just keep staying. So when we first started there, people mostly built their homes out of pallets and tar paper, things that they could find left over from the factory. And then little by little improve where they live. So it's a pieced together looking place. We still don't have running water. Streets are there. It's not maybe the worst you might imagine, but it's definitely the slum. That's all I can
It's
say.
not currently under invasion right now.
Right. Yeah, they just call it invasion lands. Maybe not the best
A good distinction.
word. Yeah, that's what it is in Spanish. Invasión. That sounds a little better, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
We should start.
This could be our blooper reel.
Right.
Oh, no, this is great.
So basically, people started moving in there when the factory started opening up after NAFTA. So there are big sections of the city that used to be hills where people have just settled there. And then after the fact, the city comes in and sort of legitimizes it, is what I would say. Street lights, there was no electricity when we moved there, things like that. So if you were to come now, you would see mostly cinder block homes, but you still see some of those pallet homes that we told you about. You would see dirt roads up in our neighborhood. You would see a lot of people walking in the streets. You would see a lot of people coming and going. There's not a lot of hanging around on the corners or anything like that, because most people are working. So the factories are going all the time, and a lot of people are coming and going, kind of walking with a purpose on their way to school or to work. The kids might be playing in the street. Families might be chatting outside, but generally people have somewhere to go. And when they're coming home, they're up pretty tired. So we do, you do see a lot of movement, but it's, again, it might not be like an inner city hanging around feel that you might have in mind. So in the evenings, especially in the summer, people get more social and they're hanging out. We have a sports park, so parents will come down. The kids are in the sports park almost every night of the year. The park that we built years ago, because it has lights in it. So the kids will be out playing. There aren't many places to play for the kids except for the park, so that's where you'll see them. And a day in the life, you'll wake up, what will feel, it'll be about 5 something in the morning when you wake up, but it'll be like 8 back home with the time change. The sun rises a little bit earlier and sets a little bit earlier than you'd be used to from DC. And you will get up and it won't be hot yet, but you'll feel it warm up, and you'll eat your breakfast, and you'll realize that you are not at home. You will look around and you'll think, this is different. And the amazing thing is, about 2 days into it, this is one of our favorite things, Sunday when everyone gets there, is just this, whoa, where did I land? What was I thinking? Why did this sound like a good idea? Or if a friend talked them into it, they'd look at you like, what were you thinking? So you have a little bit of that. The amazing thing is, by Wednesday, everybody is comfortable. They've got the rhythm down. They understand how, the shower works and where the food is. And they're usually having a really good time. By Friday, they often do not want to leave.
Mm.
And you get to see this transition of people as they grow accustomed to being there. So they're,
The 5 a.m. thing is because of jet lag. It's not because
Yeah, right. Yeah, want to be clear. Yeah, we're not getting you up at 5. We don't do anything till like after 7. It's just all of you arriving from the East Coast with the time change will be awake early for Mexicans.
Mm.
So we have breakfast, and then we have 2 chapels, depending on the size of the group. We'll go in and pray and worship, not for super long, read some scripture, talk about what we're going to do that day. Not a lot of meetings. Then we'll head out, and you may be working on a cement floor for one of these houses, or you might be helping at our kids cafe that a couple days a week will serve food, pancakes, things like that. Vacation Bible Club might be going on. So the morning you're spent doing, most of the time people are doing this like a painting project, a cement floor project, and some are working with kids depending on the day. You come back and it's maybe 12:30, and that's when we eat our big meal about 1. Kirsten right here is a really good cook. We eat some authentic Mexican food, but we also have some Italian food and some straight up American food, because our goal is not to make the food be a sacrificial issue.
That's a good way of putting it.
So it is just Kirsten doing the cooking, and she is not offended if you don't eat, so you don't have to worry about having food put in front of you. We have these things called peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and there's always Cheerios and food. So the goal is not to make you prove your faith in God through eating food you don't like. Okay. So we know that eating well is good for keeping everybody healthy on the trip. So
And we can accommodate stuff.
Yeah.
So we've got food allergies, and that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We've had close to 3,000 people come down by this point and
Wow.
eat. And usually the comment is, wow, the food was pretty good, because people get braced for food suffering. There's enough work, and it's enough of a change, all the just living in the slums. It's almost a mile high. So sometimes that's actually a little adaptation for people being that high up. Most of the time people find coming from, I grew up in Baltimore, coming from the East Coast in July, you find the weather more pleasant in Mexico than what you would be experiencing outside back home. And you would have your lunch, and then we take a little siesta, because if there is a warm part of the day, it's after lunch. And so we find it's not wise to put everybody back out again. So we take a break. Some people take a nap. Some people play cards or other kind of games in the eating pavilion. And then about 3-ish, it takes us, eating is about 1 to 2 by the time we clean up and everything. You get a break from about 2 to 3. 3:15 or so, we ring the bell and come back in the chapel, and we will read a psalm, 10 minutes maybe, and then we head out for a briefer afternoon work project. And then most people like to play sports in the park and do events with the kids. Kids carnivals and things like that. So the afternoon is pretty much moving towards the park. That's our big relational time. And we'll go down there, and depending on what the local leaders want to do in terms of themes, we've done, what have we done? Hawaii, Water Olympics,
World Cup.
we have World Cup soccer.
Western.
We've done the Western. So they're pretty creative down there. We just jump in with them and do a lot of stations. But usually what happens is people just end up playing with the kids. The kids just love attention. That they might be playing Matchbox cars with little boys, that the park is where they come, and they just, oftentimes their parents are working or things like that. So the kids are there, and then we're usually there till we can't see anymore. Like usually I'll say, hey, last goal, because you can't see the soccer ball and you don't want to get hit with it. And then we all walk up to Cuirim house, and then we eat a lighter, middle of the day is our big meal. We eat something more like grilled cheese and tomato soup or something, or what else?
Just easy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, something that's a little bit, dinner tends to be more of a kind of rolling thing where you come in, people eat as they come back to Cuirim House because they kind of come back in stages. And then there's a little free time. And then about 8-ish, we have a chapel time. Again, not very long. If everybody's tired, it might be 10 minutes. If everybody's like psyched up and someone's playing worship, like your week, Brad will be there. So the worship is gonna be really good. People may stick around and worship, but usually chapel's about 10-15 minutes. And then there's more free time. It's 8:30-ish. People start getting tired because that to your body's almost midnight. Sometimes we have to force people to stay up till 9. We have had to do that before, just so everyone gets on the same schedule. And then about 9-ish, they go to bed, 10 maybe, depending if the group's like a super nighttime group. We try to get everyone on the same rhythm, but it's not all about the rules, and it's not like a camp, like it's not super strict, just us. And so we'll adapt that. For some reason, if people are really tired, maybe we'll sleep into 7:30 or something, or 8. It's just not, we generally try to just get it to where the same 8 hours are the quiet hours. That way those who want to sleep can sleep. And then sometimes people from the neighborhood or leaders may stop over at night and they may share a little bit or worship with us. Really depends on the interest of the group in getting to know some of the local leaders. They're willing to come over or give us our space, kind of based on how we feel. So that's pretty much a day, right?
Yeah, that's a day.
It's a day. That's just one day. Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Probably more than one.
So how did you all get connected with the region of Nogales, and what kind of prompted you to start Cuirim Outreach?
We got connected through the Evangelical Free Church, through the missions arm of the church. And we started going years ago on short-term trips when we were leading the youth group here in Lynchburg, Virginia. And we knew when we first got married that we wanted to do missions together, and we wanted to start a place where people of all ages and different cultures could come together. So it was kind of something the Lord gave us as a dream. And then we saw the door open to move it beyond just like us taking our own group down, and to creating a place where lots of churches and schools could come down. I just felt like he was telling us to do it. So you don't want to miss it, So we started that when our oldest was 5 and he's 24 now. So
Wow. Long time. So
Yeah.
awesome.
So what intrigued you guys about the monastic lifestyle of Ireland? Because I was reading about how you guys kind of structure around that. And how have you seen that structure benefit you personally, the people, the schools, the churches that come and work alongside you, and also the community of Nogales?
yeah, well, I think the idea is the incarnational reality, which is what Jesus really teaches us. He came and walked among us, and was one of us, and knew our pain and knew our joys and our struggles and trials. And so we wanted to set up a place where we could live in the neighborhood and live like our neighbors, even if it's just for brief periods of time. We're not like separating ourselves and sequestering far off, where things are more comfortable. It's when we're there, we're trying as best we can to, live in the community. And then the idea as well is that we're on kind of the road that's going through the neighborhood. And so you get to participate when they've had water shortages. We feel that when we're excited, they might put pavement down. We're all excited about that. And they were, doing things like fun things at the church for the church service. Our kids were excited to get to be a part of the parade themselves. So the idea is that we're not some separate entity, but we're like one of and part of the community. And that's what the monastic did. Some of the monastic did this like far off in the hills all by. Irish monastic went straight for the center of community, the thoroughfares, the trade fairs. They went where people were. And that's what we try to do with Cuirim House.
That's really neat. I love the intentionality there.
Yeah. So the idea was, how do you take the concept of spiritual formation and growing in maturity in Christ, and use that in a way that is present in the community at large. So the way they did it was they broke up the day into prayers, not for long, but it was just something that they did. It was a good rhythm. And it focused on scripture and prayer, but it didn't drag it out for hours and hours and hours. It was okay, just pop in, the bell rings, you go in, you pray, you memorize the psalm, you're back out. Don't settle into your seat too much. You're going to keep moving. So it's benefited us in one of the things that the monastic community is focused on was just the value of physical work. And there is something to that that's using the bodies God gave you as a gift. And we know in our culture more and more the jobs are getting away from that, where you're not tiring yourself out. You could be sitting down all day and doing it. And so some of the joy of being there is just physically walking and being out and about and using your arms and being tired and wondering if you can carry one more bucket. And it's a gift to people to tire your body out. That was something that they did. That's just a benefit to remember that we're physical beings. And even if our society is advanced to where most of the jobs pay better if you're sitting and working on the computer, there's nothing wrong with that. But we need to move and be and feel when it's warm. We don't have air conditioning there. Usually you don't mind it, surprisingly, but when the rains come, we're usually in July, it often rains, the monsoons come, and it cools down. Well, if you've been hot for the last 2 days and those rains come, you are really happy over just the fact that you have to wear your sweatshirt in the morning. And yesterday you were hot. We've separated ourselves from a lot of those just physical sensations by setting our environments up to make them as non-factors as possible. It's comfortable so that it doesn't detract. So I'm not against any of it. We have air conditioning and I'm not against it, but the advantage is you're out there in the weather, you're in the neighborhood, the people you're walking a lot. You might not get in a car all week, which is rare now. How many people would spend a whole week within walking distance from where they're sleeping? Just some simple stuff. Life slows down a little bit. That the benefit of is just remembering there's like a rhythm to life, and embracing those rhythms. That's something they did well. So it doesn't mean you have to keep the same one when you get home, but it does make you think about rhythm, which we have to do. Even more so since we started it. We can start working at 6 a.m. as soon as we touch our phone and still be going 10 at night. And we recognize that's great, but sometimes we get tired by it, so thinking of that's how you asked how it benefited. I think just being able to step outside, however rhythm we've set for our lives, and realizing we have some choice in it. We don't necessarily need to go as dramatic as, say, the monastics did and pray 7 times a day, but you could do some things like just leave your phone there Monday nights and just not touch it, stuff like that. Benefit of the community. The benefit of the community is just we've been there. Like, we haven't left. It's not a neighborhood anyone intends to go to. You live there only if everything else didn't work out. And so when we come in there, they are thinking, okay, these people could have gone to a lot nicer places in Mexico, and they are here. I don't even want to be here. And here these Americans are here. So what is it about them that they just keep coming back year after year after year? There's got to be some bigger thing than what I would assume you travel for, which is for fun and to, be comfortable and eat all that stuff. So what it does is it's a continued witness to Christ, year in, year out, that it says something. It says something to the people in the neighborhood, to the people on the US side who've been watching this go across and wondering why in the world we keep doing it. And then just staying with people, getting to know families and know them for 18 years through the ups and downs. Like, sometimes things are going great, sometimes things are a little slow, but we're there. And that's also speaks to them, like a longevity component that we picked up from the monastics that were, in the same monastery, be hundreds of years there.
Wow, that's really good. So you kind of hinted at this with your answer, but my next question is, what does your relationship with the community and the local church look like, and how have you seen that relationship change during your time in Nogales?
I mean, I think it'd probably be like any community that anyone's in. You really have to be open to the fact that you can't hold things too tightly. You can't control the direction things go in. We went to Nogales thinking, okay, well, let's just see what God's going to do here with, this dream that he's given us, and the faith we needed to start it. And I feel like we're still in that same spot, which is, okay, let's go see what God's going to continue to do with the faith he's giving us to go back. And each year we are learning to lean into the Lord, because it looks a little different each year. We've had some dear friends that we were working alongside with who've now gone to be with Jesus. So that changes things significantly. We've had kids that were kids raise up now who are helping lead ministries.
Oh, wow.
With leading worship and helping with sports outreach. Well, that's a change. It's a wonderful change, but over 18 plus years, you have some heartaches and some losses. And I think really the challenge for all of us is you got to keep trusting the Lord and keep following him, and, follow the detours he puts in front of you when you need to. We've had a presence there for a long time. We've had different partnerships that have been long-term. And like I mentioned, some friends have already gone to be with Jesus. So we're at a spot now with COVID kind of taking a new turn. We're waiting to see what God does in this chapter. I'm sure new things or some adaptations are going to need to keep coming, but I think, that's part of walking with the Lord.
I think relationship wise, just to be a real person with them and keep your promises. That Lexi, I don't know if I told you about the girl who had asked me to do her wedding. Did I tell you that one? So
yeah,
one of the girls that came to our kids clubs, she was, I don't know, 11, 12, somewhere. And then she told me that when she was old enough, she wanted me to do her wedding. So I said, and wanted me to promise. And so I said, well, you kind of need probably a boyfriend first. And she said, we're a ways away, but she still wanted me to promise. And I don't know, 10 years later, 11 years later, she had moved 8 hours further south, and now she had a boyfriend, and she was ready to get married, and she was ready for me to keep my promise. So so we all went down there and did her wedding, and she grew up really poor, but she made it into the magnet high school, and then some of the teams from Cuirim House were able to pay for her entire high school. She did really well and got into college, and then some of the teams were able to pay for her whole college. And now she's 27, and she is the principal of a preschool, 250 kids in it and 60 teachers, and super sharp. But I still talk to her every couple of weeks. And so some of it is just being a real person with them and seeing them as people that live in friends for life that live in our neighborhood. That's a big part of it, because it's more than when you get there, you just see the needs. Just see the needs, and you see yourself as the one that could meet them. And it's deeper than that. It's really seeing everyone as people, which is, I think, what Jesus did. He just stopped and saw individuals. Yeah. I got one more. I don't know if you want to hear stories or not. Is this going too long?
Cool story.
that's great. Let's maybe 2 more questions, Lydia, yours, and then maybe more from me. Yeah.
Cool. That's a really neat story. It's cool to hear how you guys are making those deeper connections. So there's very clear ways where you guys are helping with the practical needs of Nogales. So like you talked about laying concrete, building walls, things like that. But your mission is also the broader goal of bringing Jesus to the community. And how have you seen hearts and lives change for Christ in your time there?
Yeah, so when we first started in the neighborhood, we did a lot of prayer walking and a lot of worshiping and felt significant spiritual shifts in the area. Then we started up these children's, like kids cafes, what we call them. And these are places of light, like places of peace where kids and their moms can come and hear the word of God and be creative and play and be fed. I mean, those are two like real significant, like concrete,
Yeah, I would say what we try to do is we work with local churches. That's probably the best way, because we're not the church. I mean, here in the US, Kirsten and I lead a church, but we're not the church down there, because we don't attract the neighbors to Cuirim House. We're trying to attract them to the local fellowships. We're trying to be a bridge between it. So we do whatever we can to put the spotlight on the local faith community. So for us right now, and it changes. I mean, these kind of neighborhoods are constantly in flux. So that's, and COVID was tough. Yeah, it was shut down. So, but right now there's two faith communities that we work with in the neighborhood. One is like a cell group model, which was somewhat of an adaptation. I think that flourished more with COVID, and they're still running on that. So there's a couple that's about 30 that they're doing that. And so we work with them. They work with us in the park and the soccer tournaments, but that's the route they're taking. Then over at our kids cafe, there's more of like a local church that meets on a Sunday night. That's where you would go, if you were really interested. So in some, like when I was there last time, one of the kids from the kids cafe, who was 6 when we opened it, is now in his last semester of college and leads worship at the church service. So you do see them come through. A lot of them, come and they don't stay, but some of them come through and learn about the Lord at the Bible study when they're 6, 7, 8 years old, and then continue to grow. They grow in their faith, and they become young adults, and they're involved in the church. A lot of move away too. That's, like I said, it's a neighborhood you want to leave. So then, they'll maybe take what they've learned and go out from there. It's a very transient place. So one of the challenges, and we knew it when we got there. I mean, it's the border. It's just most people who come up there from deeper into Mexico were planning on crossing into the US, and plans fell through for whatever reason. So, it's like a tidal thing in the water, in the ocean, where different tides come in of humanity. And it's a great place to live out the kingdom because you interact with people. It's not a great place to build a church. Just because, someone's there and then they're gone and then they're back, and 6 months later they're gone, that there's that. Everybody has one foot out the door. So it's a little bit tough to really build a big church. But we work with local leaders who are sticking it out. But even for them, they're thinking, hey, should I go here? Because it's not the nicest place to live all the time. You'd like running water at some point. So it's a challenge to build a community there. Because to stay and minister there, you need to have a pretty good capacity for things. And if you're good enough to be a leader of a church, you probably can get the kind of job where you can get out of the slums so that your wife can have running water in the bathroom, doesn't have to haul a bucket in. So it's tough to keep leaders in the neighborhood, because if they develop the education and the skills to be good church leaders, their wives and start saying, hey, they have discovered how to do running water. And if you'll just work in this factory, we can move out of here.
Interesting.
Kids can grow up not in the slums either, so it is a really tough place to build big faith communities.
Sounds like that's one of the big reasons that Cuirim Outreach is so important, because you all are there and you are caring for the neighborhood and the people that are still there and that
Yeah.
will be there, because it sounds like there will always be people who are there. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, as we are thinking about Students of Restoration coming and us getting to be down there with you guys, what is one thing that we should look forward to? Or I know it's hard to pick one, but what are you excited for someone coming for the first time? What is your hope for that person?
I think my hope would be, and I see this often, people are surprised at how at peace they are there.
Hmm.
And it is only a week, so you don't want to make too much of it, but you have very little of your world with you. And it's surprising how 3 or 4 days into it, there's this sense of joy of simplicity in just who God made them to be,
Mm.
and just a real ability to just take it in, to live in the present moment. And so, I find that people come, and I've had students come through the second time. So a lot of people come back, and I've heard kids come through down the hallway. There's a hallway right in the middle of Cuirim House. They'll get off the bus if they've been there before, and they kind of race to these Greek steps, which overlook this valley. And I've heard kids literally say, "I'm home.
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
I like who I am here."
Hmm.
I've heard kids say that to me, and then I've literally heard them say when they didn't think anyone was listening, "I'm home. Like, I'm just so glad to be here." So something is really freeing about that. Leaving kind of your world behind. It could be any, it's not unique to Cuirim House, but particularly surprising is when you look around and see the environment you're in. If you were to take pictures of it and send it, people often think, now, why was that such a peaceful place to you? You're, indoor space at Cuirim House is like 2,300 square feet. It's like a home. There's 30 of us living there. You don't get to decide what you eat. Most of us decide, our meals. It's really freeing for people of all ages, because we have more and more adults coming as well. There's a freedom and a peace, and just free to enjoy the life God's given them, and to want to bear for the kingdom wherever they are. One guy comes down he's probably 35. He said it's like cleaning out my nets. You know what I mean? Just kind of get my perspective and my life oriented. Things
Wow.
clearer. People have said that, after a couple of days there, just things seem clearer, their life and their purposes and the Lord, and and we do see people really make some changes in the way they go back into their old lives based on what they've done. So, contentment, that's another thing that I see.
Wonderful. Yeah. Man, I wish we could listen to you guys tell stories all night. But this has been really, really wonderful. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up our time and move into the rest of our days together? Yeah.
I think if Lexi, you've already connected with Alice.
Yeah.
If you get her to do an intro video,
Okay.
she's a lot of fun. She
Cool.
just so that we're talking big picture, but some
Right.
people to know, like, how do you turn the shower on, and what exactly can I drink water, that kind of stuff. So she will do, if you can get her to do that. She usually does it live, but she'll do it for you.
Yeah, we're talking about a time for that in the next coming week.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so that would be a recommendation.
Awesome.
What else would you say?
Well, I think you have to figure out, Sophie, that's what ladies' hand
Oh,
signals were for. So I'm gonna hop off. I think
My daughter's last day of school, our
Oh,
trying to get our
awesome.
attention, to which we just said, like,
Well,
we have
thank
to
you
pick
so
up
much.
early. Well, I don't have to go, just one of us has to go.
Well, we'll say goodbye to our recording.
Okay. All right.
So maybe wave to everyone in the room. Brian.
All right, bye.
And I'll
Bye.
Nice to meet you. Take